Hi, everybody. I'm Helena Island, and this is my better half.
Billy Island.
And we are the Islands. This is Marriage Moments with us. And so typically we have a topic that we discuss. And
Or we see where it goes.
Yep. Usually we have a topic we discuss, and then it just takes a life of its own.
It does. It really does.
We're super excited to be here with you this Friday. I'm going to date the episode. Billy doesn't like when I do that. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
we're going to date the episode. Today's Friday. And the reason why I'm going to date it is because it's Friday, April the 4th, and my birthday was on the 1st.
All right. Yeah. Our birthday was on the 1st. We had a great time. It seemed like we're still celebrating it, right?
Yep. We sure are. And I just want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes. People wished me happy birthday and stuff, and I'm really grateful. But yeah.
Yeah. What do you like about your birthday the most? Because it seemed like you know, it takes on a life of its own every year.
What do I like about my birthday the most? I would have to say just reflection on the previous, like the year, the previous year, and just seeing what God has done, in my life over the course of a year. And so I like that. I like reflecting. And then I also just like, you seem to be super excited about my birthday, almost more than your own birthday. And I like that. That is so fun.
Okay. Yeah. I do get excited about your birthday because, it gives me a reason to celebrate you. I mean, obviously we celebrate so much, like in our marriage and in our personal life. We do. I mean, I know it seems like it's cliche, but like every day is like Valentine's Day to a degree. That's why I'm like plucked when it comes to trying to figure out something to do, because God has blessed us, and I am so grateful. He's blessed us in such a way that, and this is not boasting, it's just reality, right? That every day is a beautiful day. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it may be just the lens that we see it through, through God's grace. But so it's kind of difficult to kind of like figure out, like, okay, what are we going to do this time?
Right.
So, but it is exciting to celebrate you. You make it so easy,
Oh, well, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, you make it easy. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. So April 4th, 2025, marriage moments, and we are about to dive in.
Yeah,
what are we going to discuss today?
We're going to talk about, because I get sometimes I've gotten this question about, like, how to choose a mate. Like, how did you choose? How did you know, that Billy was going to be your person? And how do you know? How do you choose? And people are just, that's a very common question. How do you choose a mate? What are you supposed to look for? What are they supposed to have going on and things like that? So today, Billy and I are going to give a few just kind of pointers or some things that we did when it came to choosing a mate. And hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah, some things, we want to drop some principles.
Yeah.
Because if it's preference, it can differ for every person. But principles in dating, like some core values to stand on, and it doesn't matter where you're at in life. This will help you no matter what. This is, preferences are, the way a person looks, what type of job they have. I mean, these are preferences, but we're going to talk about some principles, but this means that you have to choose. So God doesn't choose your spouse for you.
No, he does not. Now,
okay,
I will say this. He will send opportunities.
Okay.
Opportunities, and then at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide. Now, on the flip side of that, the enemy will send opportunities too, right?
The enemy will send opportunities too. Oh, my God.
God definitely is not going to choose for you. It's your free will choice who you choose to spend the rest of your life with or to date.
Yeah.
So
you can't. You won't have an opportunity to blame God for that spouse of yours.
You chose him.
You chose him.
That was all you, girl.
That's all you, boy.
Right.
Because, I've heard people say stuff like, oh, well, God put this person in my life. It's like, well, you chose them after God put them in your life. And, it's so important to know that you have to make a choice yourself.
You do.
For this individual. They may have all the right things. They check off all the boxes. And then you have to make a choice. So what about this? You're talking about boxes. Are there boxes that you had, when you were single? Now, this is many moons ago now.
Well,
we've been together going on 18 years this year.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. So, okay, this is a long time ago. So talk to us. Did you have boxes that you needed to check off?
I did have boxes. Some of them knowingly and then some unknowingly. I had, but I did definitely have boxes.
Give us an example, like something that you knew knowingly, there was a box, you did that deliberately. And then some things, it was just like unconscious. You wasn't even aware that you had a box. Talk to us about that. What was the difference?
I wanted, so a box that I definitely had was I wanted my man to be God-fearing, God-loving Christian man who is in pursuit of a growing relationship with Christ. That was number one priority. That box definitely had to be checked because I feel like if that box is checked, you're headed in the right direction.
Okay.
Because love is a gamble. I mean, I don't care where you meet your spouse. You can meet them in church. You can meet them on the job. You can meet them, and of course, the more scandalous the place you meet them, you kind of get what comes with that. But my point is, love is a gamble.
When you say love is a gamble, let's clarify that because, some religious folk out there.
Yeah.
And they may say God is love is God, and all those things. So when you say love is a gamble, will you explain that for us?
So love between two human beings is a gamble.
Okay.
The love that God is sure and true and solid and never has to be questioned.
Okay.
But the love between two fallible human beings is definitely a gamble.
Okay.
And so my whole goal was to at least kind of stack the odds in my favor a little bit as much as I possibly could because at the end of the day, you're dealing with a whole human being that you really don't know. You're getting to know.
Yeah, free will is definitely in play.
Yeah.
Like human beings can make a choice.
Exactly.
To break your heart, to cheat,
to
lie, to manipulate. I mean, but you can, like you say, I don't want to say stack the deck, but you can put the odds in your favor if someone's in a thriving relationship, like you said, that box that you had. What was one of the boxes? So that was a box you intentionally had.
Yes.
What about an unintentional box?
Okay. So an unintentional box that I had was someone who was teachable. I didn't know that was a quality that I wanted until I got a man who's teachable. You know what I mean? Like someone who's willing to come under some, like discipleship is what we call it in Christendom, but like someone who's willing to be taught, someone who is not the type of person who just always thinks they're right, always has to have all the answers. They will humble themselves. And I didn't know that was something that I wanted. That was an unintentional.
Okay. You wanted a learner.
Yeah.
Someone that was a learner. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're out there, ladies, and you're thinking about, okay, what kind of boxes you have and are they checked off? Have they been checked off or not? But go ahead and go in the comment section and begin to start telling us what are some of the boxes, intentional boxes that you have, and what are some of the unintentional boxes? Like, what are some things that you just desire out of your mate or future mate? And I think that would be very important in choosing a spouse if you have not chose a spouse yet. And if you have chose one, do you think it's good to like put that on the table in a relationship and just actually say, hey, these are some of my standards? And then what is your approach? Because I heard a person one time, they told me that their spouse just gave them a list of things they just wanted them to do. And for me, for some odd reasons, not do, but be. I want you to be this. And I was like, I wonder how I would respond if Helena sent me that. Not that we don't communicate about things that we dislike and we make adjustments, but it just seemed the approach may have been a little, I don't know, it just seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that, about, how to approach this? Do we even communicate this to our spouse? When should we communicate this in
like somebody you're dating, not necessarily your spouse yet?
Right. Well, even if it's your spouse, like if these are some things that that you have acquired over time and they're not that, right?
Okay.
Or when you're dating someone, obviously, what do? Do you just look for them? Do you check off the box? There's a lot, that goes.
Well, I think
play.
in those two different scenarios, the approach is totally different.
Okay.
But for someone that you're considering dating, I would not suggest that you lay down this whole list and boxes and checking and all of that your first date. Like, it's like, okay,
yeah.
Chill.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Run them
Like,
off.
Are you a psycho? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But that is something that you definitely bring to the table internally. And as the date unfolds, and if you see that person again, you'll start to see, okay, is this going in the direction that I essentially wanted it to go in the first place? Not in a manipulative way, but just in a very knowing way. Like, I'm not going to date someone who has conflicting belief system than me. Basically, you have to stand on what you stand on first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have your core values and your core principles down pat. And the reason why that's important is because what's that saying? If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. That it becomes true times 10 when you're in a dating relationship. So I think that, first and foremost, as a young woman or a young man, you need to stand on what you stand on. A relationship with God is paramount for me. Church attendance is, I will be in church. I will serve in my church. Whatever is important to you, you definitely need to bring that to the table eventually as your dating time increases. So I did not, when I started dating Billy, I did not all of a sudden not want to date Billy. Like, as we were dating, the more time I spend with you, the more time I wanted to spend with you.
Yeah.
So as you're going on dates and spending time with people, you should always be consciously aware of what you value. Yeah. Because what you value is eventually is going to become a conversation that you guys can talk about. And I think that it is super important to know what you stand on so that when it's time to have that conversation, everything is on the table. I cannot express strong enough for individuals, when you're looking to date someone or you're looking for a relationship, make sure you know what you stand on so that when the time comes to present it, whether it's the 5th date, the 15th date, the 20th date, whenever it is, you're able to say, hey, you know what? This political conversation really means a lot to me. Or this environmental issue is really something that I feel passionately about. Or, you know what? This is how I spend money, or this is what I want to see in my future. You got to know what you stand for, I think.
Yeah. The statement that you're talking about is Alexander Hamilton. He said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Okay.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Alexander Hamilton coined that quote, and you do need to stand for something.
Yeah.
I think that, for me, those are so good to have those boxes checked. It's so good to know what you stand for, to have core values, obviously, a thriving relationship with God, which in turn helps certain characteristics. Like, because there has to be some type of characteristics. You have to do an assessment of a person.
Yeah.
Like, and it's okay. Some people are, oh my God. People are in this mode where they just don't want to judge things. And I'm not saying judge them like judge going to hellfire, but you have to make an assessment of a person's character. You just really do. You just got to make sure that this is going to be a safe space for you. Are they, do they have healthy rhythms in their life?
Yeah.
Do they have, fits of rage?
Okay.
Do they have wandering eye? Are they faithful? Are they consistent?
Yep.
These are things that you just have to look at, and it's okay because you're in the dating phase. That's what dating is about. Yeah. And before you say I do, now you're caught up and you've seen all those red flags.
Yeah.
You not only did you see red flags, some people talk about the red flag and the red stop sign, but you need to start looking at the yield signs too.
Wow.
You know, some people are always talking about the stop sign. What about the yield sign?
Yeah.
Before it turned red, you got yellow.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And if you seen that yellow light, you could have slowed down in this relationship, and you didn't have to go all the way into a marriage.
Yep. Okay, give us an example of that, because that is really good. Because there are always signs. You know, people are showing you who they are all day long, every day.
Well, when you're driving, before it turns red, you see the yellow light.
Yeah.
And it's telling you to slow down.
Yep.
And so, you know, when someone is getting angry and they get a blow up on you, it's like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
You know, this person may just turn violent, and you know, when you see this individual just has no, you know, control over their financial status, just spending money, don't have no clear direction of where they want to go. They have no emotional stability, you know, and it's okay to back out. Yeah. You know, and it may just turn into being a real good friend of yours.
I think that is super key. Every relationship is not going to turn into a marriage for you.
Right. Oh my God. And I know people that date one time.
Can we normalize that? Can we just normalize that?
We need to.
I mean, I really want to stress that. There is something to be said for dating people, and in the big picture, I guess, scheme of things, you should date people who could potentially be a spouse. Right.
Absolutely.
But it's going to narrow down to one person. And so as you're dating, you get to glean knowledge. You get to glean understanding, not only about that person, but also about yourself, you know, and mostly about yourself. And so I think that is so good. Just because you date somebody doesn't mean that is your husband.
Well, this is the problem.
Or your wife.
This is the problem, especially if we're talking about Christianity.
Yeah.
Sometimes women think that they're going to get a bad rap just because they date multiple men.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to that. I would rather you date multiple men.
Yeah.
Date does not mean I'm off the market. That just means we went out and got a cup of coffee. We hung out. We had a bite to eat. You know, I don't think movies are good dates, because you're not going to get to pick nobody's brain, talk to them, and then you're in a dark room just staring at a screen. That is not a good date for, you know, the first 5-10 dates. You need to get to know someone, talk to them, hang out, hear their heart. And as you do that, you begin to understand, like, okay, this person is a great person, but they're just not for me.
Yeah.
And you need to learn how to do that, because women, I think what's happening is they're thinking about their self-image, but you really gonna get caught up in something when you get this, you make this impulsive decision, and you just you dive into a deeper relationship with this person beyond dating. Now you're in a relationship. Now let's not talk about if you start doing some sensual things, and now your emotions are tangled up. You start having sex prior to marriage, and now you really have, you know, bypass all the yellow signs, all the red flags.
You can't even see them.
You can't see them no more because you too entangled.
Yeah.
And so now you thinking about self-image.
Yeah.
You know, you should have dated multiple men, and you know, and then you could have found the right one, and you could, you know, you got to kind of like shop.
Yeah.
You got to shop.
That's essentially what dating is.
Yeah, you got to shop.
So I'm reading this book. It's called Boundaries in Dating. I don't have all the information for it, but we could probably get that out there. But anyway, it's a really good book, because it talks about how it's important to talk about things that matter, like on dates and stuff. So some of the things that they suggest that you talk about on dates are the following, like your values. Like that's why I was talking about how it's so important to stand on what you stand on, right? And what the foundation you build your life on.
And I think, just to pause right there, is if you're single, you need to discover what your values are.
Yep.
There's so many confused people out there, and you want to bring that into a relationship. I just need to get into a relationship. No. You don't need to get in a relationship with nobody but the Lord right now to solidify your belief system, so you can know
what you stand
on and what you believe in, your values, before oozing that into someone else's life. And now you're looking for their convictions to be yours, and you're supposed to have your own already.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just needed to say that right now.
Yeah, their convictions to be your own, or like they're violating your convictions, but you never express that.
Well, you never had any.
Yeah,
you never had any, so they're violating you, but you wondering why you feel some type of way, but you never discovered, oh, this is something that mattered to me.
Yep.
And so, like me and Elena, there's things that Elena stand for because that's her personal relationship with God.
Yeah.
Obviously, if anything's biblical, we stand for that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's certain preferences that she has because she has her own relationship with God.
Yeah.
She has her own time with God. It's not that she's following me or and what I believe. Mm-hmm. No, she has her own belief. And
that's what I was going to say.
That was the beauty of us coming together. It was two solid individuals already that knew what they stood on.
Yep.
And then we bring that together. Don't look for someone to make you whole.
Yep.
You need to be whole already before you get into a relationship. Okay.
Yes,
I'm sorry about that.
Good. That's so good. That's
important.
actually something that the gentleman speaks about in that book I mentioned.
Okay.
There's a word for that where your relationship with God is either strong or weak depending on the other person. But anyway, here are some values that you can explore and see where you stand with them so that you can start formulating your core beliefs and then you can communicate those on dates. So your theology.
Yeah.
Your theology, listen, your theology is super important.
Let's break down theology.
Yes.
Theology means ology means a study and theo means God. So it's talking about the study of God.
Yes.
Your view of God, your beliefs in God, your biblical stance on God.
Yep.
So that's a good thing to share. And I know this sounds boring for some people, but we talking about for Christians. Me and Elena was talking about purpose and God's promises and stuff.
Yep.
First date. We ain't talking about nothing sensual, nothing perverted. You just got to really realize, okay, oh my God, I am a Christian and this is what Christians do.
Yes.
So theology is one
Theology. The next one, you alluded to it, calling in life.
Calling. What is your purpose?
Calling in life. Your purpose in life. That is so important because we have talked to countless people who, perhaps the woman or the man felt called to ministry in some capacity.
Called to serve God.
Called to serve God in some capacity. And the spouse just had no idea the person felt that way.
Yeah.
And so now the battle is on because this person has a calling there. So it's always there. They're always reaching for it. And their spouse is just not feeling it. Well, they didn't know all that going in, and some people just don't pivot like that.
Yeah.
So that book gives an example of a man who was called to pastor. He was called to pastor, and he never shared that with her, and because he was kind of figuring it out, but he knew he was called to pastor. Anyway, long story short, when he wanted to start pastoring, his wife was just like, no. Yeah. I'm not doing that. And they have had kind of like rifts in their marriage for years because of that. Yeah. So your calling in life is definitely something you want to know and then be able to communicate.
Yeah, you gotta talk about that very early. If not, it depends on what age you are, but you're really wasting time.
Yep.
Like, by the time me and Elena started dating, I was 29 years old, going on 30. And I just didn't have time to waste. If I was 15, okay, play around, whatever, have a little fun. This is not the final one, but I am looking for someone to be with for the rest of my life.
Yep.
So I'm thinking about helping out drug addicts, alcoholics, prostitutes, gang members. I'm talking about living in the hood and reaching people. Are you with that?
Yeah.
I mean, that was like day one. That was day one. Now, I don't want to suggest everyone, come out like that.
That was a little intense.
But but she asked me.
Yeah, I did.
And when she asked me, I was just ready to communicate that because I wasn't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna lie. And then I didn't have a lot of tact at that time. I could have maybe said, well, maybe if, I could have sealed the deal with another date and said, maybe our next date I'll explain a little bit more. But I wasn't that tactful, so I just gave it all to her right then.
Yeah. So another thing they suggest you talk about is relationships, like relationships. So say for an example, if there are children involved, what is your relationship with your children's father, with your children's mother?
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys communicate? What does that even look like?
What is that first date, or is that just something as it evolves over time, or what do you think?
I definitely think these are things to discuss as it evolves over time.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it's super important to know any of this when you're just barely meeting someone.
Yeah.
You know, now I will say though, if there is no need to date someone who goes against your core belief as a Christian, you know, I don't think that I would ever have thought to date someone who wasn't at least attending church and going, you know, on a basic level. There are some basic things you should have in common at first, but I think these things are more reserved for future dates, you know, as your relationship evolves.
Good talking points. Very good
talking points for sure. So your relationships, you know, how do you communicate if you have children? How do you communicate with your children's parents? How do you guys co-parent? What does that look like?
And that means a lot, because it says a lot about them being responsible. Are they taking care of their responsibilities? If they have children, how they relate with their parents is gonna ooze over into your relationship as well. Because you know, you're gonna see it. You know, how they relate with their mom, how they relate with their father. Do they relate with their siblings? You want to know a little bit about their upbringing, because I'm telling you, no matter what, yes, Jesus heals and Jesus does all those type of things, but there's gonna be some areas in their life that you're gonna know why they do that, because you know their background of how they were raised and the relationships they had. You know, it's so much that I know about Helena because of, just, you know, I've seen it, but it still blew my mind, but just how she was raised with her parents, you know, in a Christian-based, faith-based household. And it just said a lot. So you want to talk about theology. You want to talk about calling and purpose, and you want to talk about relationships.
You want to talk about relationships, and you want to talk about job and career.
Oh wow!
Yeah. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you want to do?
You know what? And some people be trying to hide all this information. Like, you all up in my business. You in mine. You didn't ask me to go out on a date.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you in my business right now. You done took an hour of my time over this coffee. So why would I not talk to you? You in my business? No, but seriously, some people don't want to talk about that. Well, I knew Helena was a teacher.
Yeah.
Helena knew about my purpose and what I was doing at the time. I was like in some form of internship of training for vocation ministry. Yeah. Vocational ministry. So she knew that where I was headed, and I knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And those are so important, you know. Is financial.
Yeah, that's actually next.
Okay.
Finances. So job and career is also important because, say, for an example, your job you have to travel, you know, and we will not be living in your hometown for long. You know, we're going to have to move to Seattle or whatever. You know, you want to talk about that so that things aren't just spraying on people and then it causes a whole bunch of drama later on. So the next thing is finances. How do you spend your money? What do you deem important when it comes to money? How do you view money? All of that is super important. I feel like we didn't talk about it enough. We did. But we did touch on it, but we just didn't.
Not enough.
We could have spent a more time there.
We could have. The one thing we did know is we were givers. Avid givers. I mean, like, just we still are, you know, we knew that. And so I think that may be one thing that God like graced us because of our heart to always give, you know, to local church, to people, to organizations. So we've always been great givers, but there's something beyond that, because yes, you want to give to the Lord, but then you want to learn how to steward the rest of it well. Yes. You know, and stewardship is not, you know, it's not communicated enough. So then you get this irresponsible guy. He always want to buy Jordans. He always want to get, you know, all these different haircuts, outfits. She always wants to get, you know, her nails done. I mean, there's nothing against any of those things. Yeah. Nothing's wrong with getting your nails done, getting your hair done. But if it's at the expense of, you know, the security financially of your family, that's dangerous. If you're borrowing today from tomorrow in order to enjoy a pleasure-filled life, then it begins to starts, you know, building up, and it has a lot of finance. You have pressure, and you know, it's unnecessary arguments about money. You have all these things if you didn't talk about that up front. You know, and you know, and you'll start seeing signs too. You'll see those yellow lights, and you slow down. Whoa, this dude always spending money. Whoa, you know, and then you can add it up. Okay, they work here, they're spending like that. No, they don't. They're not responsible. You know.
Yeah.
Like you'll know where they work and you'll know how much really they get paid, and you're like, yeah, you can just add it up. Hold on, car note. You know, all those things can add up, and you can begin to start saying, no, I don't know if I can build a future with them. And some of us may be like, well, that's being judgmental. They could change. Yeah, but at the expense of your time.
Yeah, that's
dragging you through all kind of stuff that you don't have to go through, unnecessary stuff. You can protect yourself from future, trials and issues if you just today make a healthy decision. And I'm all for people being transformed. We're in the work of church.
Help. That's what we do. Help people.
We do. But I mean, the reality is, if I had a daughter and this guy, he got a lot of potential, but he got a lot of bad patterns in his life. And it's going to take some time for him to break these patterns.
Yeah.
Do I want my daughter dealing with this for the next 3 to 5 years?
Wow.
Holding her up. And that ought to tell you a lot about, what you should do when you are dealing with another person's life.
Yeah.
You should value it just like you would want someone to value your daughter's time.
Absolutely. I agree. So we have the next thing is family. So this is you kind of touched on it when we talk about relationships, but this family is like how you relate to your mom, your dad, your the people that when you have aging parents. Both of us have aging parents, and what does that look like futuristically? Because there are many mother-in-laws who have destroyed just because for whatever reason she's clingy, she doesn't want to let go of her son or whatever. I don't particularly have that issue. My mother-in-law's great, love you, mama, but at the end of the day, how family dynamics can wreak havoc on a relationship.
Well, it's really outside interference. You got to realize that if you're going to be willing to date this person unto life, meaning get into marriage, you got to realize now it's a unit that's you guys.
Wow.
And I think it's so hard for people to realize that, especially if you got, single siblings, if you got a single parent, they may not can process that now it's a unit.
Yeah.
And we're going to take care of, we're going to love you and do whatever we can do. But this is the first unit. This is priority right here, And I think that people have outside interference because they're just so used to having their siblings around and loved ones. And that can be very damaging to a relationship that you don't understand that your commitment is 1 to the Lord and 2 to your spouse.
Yeah.
Not even the children are next.
Yeah.
After the spouse.
Yeah. Ooh, bless you.
Excuse me.
Dang, babe.
And so it's so important. Excuse me.
We the two are one, but like.
Yeah. We did that.
Right. For sure.
so important. Excuse me. So important to understand that outside interference is really dangerous for a marriage. If you let
especially
so many
early on.
Yeah, well, I mean, just period. You know what I mean? Early on, definitely, because you got to get stable. But I mean, if you can be married 20, 30 years and you start letting outside voices and outside wheels, people have a plan for you, and you let people talk about your marriage, speak into your marriage, and it's very important to have people communicate to you and encourage you, but you should not have a dominant voice, just steering you away and gravitating you away from your spouse, because that happens naturally. The natural tendency of relationships is to gravitate apart from one another. That's why you have to work so hard and being so intentional about being together.
Yeah.
And so, family can do that because they're dear to your heart. Think about it. They're dear to your heart. Man, I love my siblings. I love my mom, I mean, they're dear to your heart, but you have to make sure that, you get some healthy boundaries. And when they respect that and you respect that, that standard, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. But,
it is.
But it's good to talk about that.
Definitely.
Prior to.
Definitely talk about it.
Like, just think if my mother-in-law was amazing. You were just saying that my mom, your mother-in-law was amazing because they really respect our boundaries. But just think if they were just always intrusive, how that would be.
Yeah, that would definitely be hard.
Oh my God, that would be difficult.
Very hard.
Yeah, and there are some, mijo.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Mija. I mean, like they just got, they just love that. Oh my God, pinching cheeks. No. Oh, he's sick. I'll come over there. It's like, man, I got him. Don't like, man, this is my husband. I got him. I mean, just always just in your space, that would be just very, very devastating.
It would be definitely. It's definitely something to talk about. Or if your parent lives with you, or you care for them, like you're the primary caregiver or something, that is important to discuss. That's not something that you can just assume somebody is going to agree with and want to be a part of. So you definitely should discuss that. And the next thing is sex. You should discuss sex because
prior to.
Yes,
talk about sex. We didn't say have sex.
Right. I'm gonna let you take this topic. You seem to be able to.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think you shouldn't have it now.
You're right.
But you need to talk about it.
Yes. And if talking about it is gonna make you want to have it, you probably need to do that in a multitude of witnesses.
Yeah. You probably need you a cloud of witnesses.
Right. Yeah.
Angels, authority.
Don't set yourself up.
You need all kind of folk around you. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is we discussed that.
Yeah.
Like what prior to us getting married, we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud to say that we didn't have sex until we got married.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Jesus. We made it.
We made it. We barely made it.
I'm
talking it was tough. 2 years and 10 months.
Okay.
My God.
Move on, sir.
And what yeah, but I mean, see, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable because sex was ordained by God. It ain't. It's the world's taking the word sex and perverted, and now it makes it seem like, oh, we can't talk about sex as Christians. Like it's like, oh, why are people uncomfortable about talking about sex when God created sex?
Yeah.
So somewhere in there, that's why people have perverted views towards sex because they're not even getting it in the church, or they're not getting it from people of God, or they're not getting it in their house, or they're not talking about it. Yeah. So it's so awkward and it's deemed as wrong or negative. Yeah. And the reality is you got to talk about sex. You know what I'm saying? A rhythm of sex. How much you want sex?
Yeah. Yeah,
what do you think is accurate in the bedroom? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to begin to say, hey, look, and I don't do that, and I ain't with that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's, should be done as a Christian. This is my conviction.
Yep.
And you need to communicate about those things, because if not, and this is not a second date, a third date. This is like, okay, oh my God, this is probably going to be a marriage.
Yeah.
We're going to be together.
Yeah.
You don't want to, first date, we talk about sex.
Yeah, that'd
say,
be
girl, let me talk to you right fast, girl.
Be like, weirdo.
Let's talk about sex. It's like,
weirdo.
What? Like, yeah, she gonna leave, bro. She gonna leave. Well, he may be like, well, girl.
Yeah, you're a lot.
Yeah. So
you are a lot.
But it's something that you want to get around to.
Yeah.
In a healthy way.
You do.
And what's so crazy is we didn't even know a lot of this stuff. They didn't have this information out.
Or if they did, we didn't have access to it.
Yeah, we didn't have access to it. We did not seek it out, but we were doing a lot of it.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about finances as much as I like to.
Yeah.
We talked about debt.
Yeah.
We did talk about that. Like, okay, I got debt, I got this, I got that.
Yeah.
And then we talked about sex. The closer we got to marriage, we to our wedding, we were like, okay, what do you think is
a
accurate?
good rhythm and
we started talking about that.
Yep.
And so why do you think that's important?
Talking about sex?
Talking about
I think
sex.
it's important because you get to see, because it speaks to expectation, and it also speaks to what that person has been exposed to as well, because it's important. Because when you're talking about sex, it's probably going to spill over into like a timeline, right? And so as you're talking about this timeline, you can start piecing together, okay, so were you in a relationship with God at that time? And then you can kind of start seeing the rhythm of their patterns when it comes to their walk with Christ too.
Okay, when you're talking about timeline, like when they had sex.
Yeah, like when it started, were you abused?
Yeah,
how did you get introduced to sex? Because sometimes people are introduced to sex through porn, which is a gross over exaggeration and just false reality of what sex is truly like in a marriage setting.
Yeah,
and so it just depends on it speaks into a lot about the person's life. What is your experience when it comes to sex? Of course, by the time people are of a certain age, I mean, everybody's been exposed to it in some regard, And so it's like, okay, well, was it a healthy interaction? You know what I'm saying? Like, were you raped? Were you, all of these things come into play. And so, and it also begins to give you insight into who you're dealing with as a person, because sex can, it can show trust issues. It can show how manipulative a person is. That conversation opens up a lot. And so if you're listening, if you're tuning in to the person you're dating, you'll be able to hear all of that through this topic.
Yeah, and if you've been raped or sexually abused, we have a Christian therapist that we partner with called Sweet Deeds. And
it's not. It's called the Watershed Initiative.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So Sweet Deeds, the Watershed Initiative, is somewhere we partner with. And when we partner with them, what we would love for you to do is, if you've ever had a traumatic experience like that, you want to make sure that you connect with someone that can walk you through that, because Absolutely. That is devastating in a marriage, in any relationship, because your view and your perspective towards sex may be traumatic. You may see it from a lens that is, downplaying sex. You see it from, maybe from an aggressive view, or you may see it totally negative when God never intended for sex to be a negative thing. Yeah. And so, if you've been abused, or sexually abused or raped, we really, really would love for you to, step into some type of Christian therapy that can help you walk out it. Yes, we believe in the power of the Holy Spirit. Yes, we believe in the Word of God. We believe in Christians. But it's just like the Bible says. It says when there's a multitude of counselors, there's safety. Yeah. And, we believe in Jesus and therapy, Christian therapy. Yep. And so it's like, the therapist or someone that's counseling you, it's like a scaffold that cuts you open so you can open up. And then the Holy Spirit and the Word of God is like the healing agent that comes inside of the wound to make sure that you begin to start having a healing process. So we really pray that, if you have had an experience like that, because it can definitely be devastating in a marriage. Oh, yeah. In a marriage, I mean, this guy or this girl, that's why it's so important to learn how to be transparent in a relationship as well up front, because you don't have a lot of, just skeletons in the closet and a lot of hurts and pains. And when you walk with someone in marriage, I mean, now you're open book. You should be. Yep. You should be, and you have this person for life that you can walk with. And, I know it's a devastating, traumatic experience, and it's hard to communicate it. And sometimes, it's like you're reliving it. But I think that, to have a partner in life or a partner in love, like a marriage, you want to open up about that. And this is not pre-marriage. This is something that, you would want to open up with, after marriage. But if you have before marriage had an experience like this, that's traumatic, I would go on a journey of healing. So when you do get in a relationship, it does not bleed over on this person that did not cut you. Yep. Yeah. So these are some good. Yeah, these are some things that we really truly believe in is people finding freedom from their traumatic experiences, and definitely something like that, because it's sensitive. It's very sensitive. Very sensitive. And that's why it's so important to talk about it. So important to talk and ask questions. Hey, what do you believe? Yep. Like, how do you view God? And you know what? Those are some good talking points, and it will blow your mind of what some people believe about God. Yeah. Now, I mean, this is not a judgmental stance. I'm not saying this to be thinking negative about someone, but you would learn, maybe we shouldn't be dating because I don't think we're on the same page. And it would be good to talk about that now, because if you're in a deep relationship, and again, if you started having sex before marriage, which God does not approve of that, and now you're emotionally entangled, now it's harder to get out of that entanglement. And you guys don't even believe the same thing. So it's good to talk about that before, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that, and to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about, I think that these talking points that we're discussing right now, they help build a foundation of trust. Yes. When you're having meaningful conversations with someone that you're dating in a serious relationship, you can start seeing just the
the layers of that person kind of melt away and they start being open and honest and transparent with you. And if a person isn't open, honest, and transparent with you, well, then you need to exit that, because that doesn't get any better. But these conversations help to build a foundation of trust. And so when you do, and that's a level of transparency that leads to vulnerability with which is what you should be having in marriage. But yeah.
Which equates to intimacy.
Yep.
Which is not just sex, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
There's an intimacy when you feel like you can be transparent.
Yeah. And vulnerable.
You can be vulnerable, and now you have intimacy.
Yeah. So the last thing that they suggest that you discuss when you're dating someone is social issues. How do you feel about just all of the, like, Black Lives Matter and all of the injustice that goes on in the world, all of the...
Would that fall in the political views?
Political views. How do you feel about election and all of the things, that socially that we deal with here in life? And so that's important because there have been a lot of people who have fallen out completely because I vote Democrat, I vote Republican. How can you do that? I mean, it has blown up families and all that.
You know, we have a unique situation, and I don't think everyone's able to do this, but we have a unique vibe, me and my wife, is when we go in the booth, whoever she votes for, I don't know, and whoever I vote for, she doesn't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's a good makeup for anyone else, but I never want to influence my wife in who to vote for. Yeah. And I don't want her to influence me who to vote for. I don't do that at our church. We have a church. I never influence people to vote for a particular, because you can easily sway someone a certain way without saying Democrat or Republican. Yeah. You can easily sway it. All you got to do is start saying certain things, and you're basically leading someone to a certain direction. Yeah. You know, and so, I believe in voting. I believe in it. So, but we never, and I don't think that's a setup that everyone's able to do, because we have a discipline about ourselves that we just don't discuss that, the political part. Now we do have stances, and we've talked about them, and we have pretty firm and some of them, I don't think it's been a deal breaker for us, but some of them we don't
always agree.
We don't agree.
We don't always agree. But the freedom to speak on it is the point. Yeah. So those are some things that let's do a little recap.
Theology.
We had theology. Calling and purpose in life, relationships. How do you deal with baby mamas and drama and all of that? Job and career, finances, family, like aging parents and just siblings and all that. Sex. Healthy. Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? What is your view? And then social issues. How do you feel about what's going on in the world around us?
I think that's very important. I want to lean in a little bit more on that, because it's not just all political, but it's, your social issues or view, it really can cause, a lot of chaos in your house. And I thank God for our marriage, how I think just where we're at in our walk with the Lord, that it doesn't just bleed over into just deep rooted arguments and because we don't agree on like social.
Oh, you mean like arguments over political issues and stuff?
Well, political and just social. Yeah, just social. Like I never get into certain things. I just don't. I just don't get into that. As an African American, sometimes I'm kind of like even. Ridiculed about that. I just don't get into certain things. I just don't. I just feel like I don't want to use my platform or my influence for that. Yeah. I want to use my influence to preach the gospel and reach people and make sure. Because what I do is if I start presenting that, I'm removing about half of the people. I can't reach everybody.
Yeah, it hurts the cause of Christ.
It hurts the cause of Christ. Yeah. I can't reach the Democrat if I promote that I'm Republican. I can't reach the Republican if I promote that I'm Democrat. I can't reach, you know what I mean? So I'm losing people in my mind. I'm like, I can't do that. Yeah. I can't reach, people that, don't believe in Black Lives Matter. I'm pushing Black Lives Matter. I can't reach, you know what I mean? I just can't reach certain people because I'm already taking a stance and I'm putting a flag on, and I'm not going to do that, Yeah. I got to be able to reach people, and I just will not spend my influence on certain things. And I think that, I don't know what your stance entirely is, but I do know you have a different stance on certain things,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's okay. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah. And that's the beauty.
That is.
But it is something you should discuss, though.
It definitely is something you should discuss. So those are our pointers.
And when you discuss those things, just because I want to lean in a little bit more.
Okay, because I was going to wrap up.
Right. I sense that.
Yeah.
But when you discuss those things, it reveals a lot about a person too. Because if you're dogmatic, like you can't even talk about that. You can't even have a conversation. Oh, if you're not Democrat, or if you're not Republican, or if you're not for this, or if you're not pro-life, you're not what you believe. You don't believe in abortion. They should have a choice. I mean, if you start talking about these things and a person can't even have a conversation with you and they just start getting very aggressive, it's like, so it's good to bring those things out.
Absolutely. It's so or good. If they're so, just have no feeling towards nothing. Oh, well, whatever. Yeah. It's like, what do you, do you have any emotion? Like, what is going on with you?
Right.
So it does definitely reveal.
Because God is a God of justice, obviously, and it goes back to, the Alexander Hamilton quote. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yep.
And so, I just wanted to say that because I think that when you're in a conversation and you're dating, those are things that are red flags or yellow lights that's showing you to slow down in this relationship because this person may not be able to communicate with someone that has conflicting views. And I'm gonna tell you who gets a bad rep on that is Christians.
Oh my gosh.
We get a bad rep. You're Christian. You can't even talk to nobody else. You know what I mean? You can't even talk to someone because if they got a different view, we get a bad rep. Now I'm not saying that's all Christians, but we do. We get a bad rep because
some Christians are like that. They don't, they don't want to hear another perspective on it. So it is true.
Yeah, and we're in a politically hot climate. The climate is like kind of like intense.
Yeah.
We're in a social climate. And just where it's rising. And we need unity. We need to have unity more than anything. And I think that the Lord, wants us to have unity. That's one of the most powerful things. Where there's love, there's unity. And where there's unity, there's power.
Yeah.
And in order for us to have power in our marriage, in our relationships, we need to make sure that we have some form of unity. And that's all derives from love.
Absolutely.
So I love always connecting with you. I love when people connect with us also on our platforms, our social media platform. Make sure that you share. Matter of fact, if you're watching right now, share this with someone. Comment where you're watching from. Make sure that you get the word out. If you're on YouTube, rate, review. Let us know, how this is impacting your life. We're so grateful for you joining us. Thank you so much. And these are just great pointers, right?
They are really good talking points. So if you're dating someone or you're considering dating, get what you stand on that and talk about it. Bring it to the table when you're on your dates. Now, remember, this is not date number 1 or maybe 2, maybe not even date 5. But if you're dating someone and you are leaning more towards this may be my person, this is getting serious, we would like to suggest that, have those talking points, stand on what you stand on and bring it to the table.
Yeah. And before that, I think before you get in this deep stuff, it's just hanging out, having fun, seeing if you could be a friend with them, seeing what type of ice cream they like, what kind of, food they like, just enjoying. Just little
frivolous stuff like that.
Yeah. But this is going to take you to another level if
Absolutely.
You're talking about living life with them. Well, thank you for joining us. Marriage Moments with the Islands. Hey, I'm telling you, every single moment matters.
Absolutely.
In your marriage, in your dating life, in your singlehood. So thank you so much for joining us. And remember, share this, share it. God bless.
God bless.